So the story begins with a realization that I wanted to make a level-based game which would rely heavily on game design. I was going to be making a platformer. I had the basic ideas of what I wanted to do, but now I needed to come up with a cool idea that would make this game stand out from the rest. I decided to make the player control a super cool wizard with many unique magical spells. My final super amazing idea was that the wizard spells were not only weapons, but they would also allow the player to have more movement options. So I got to developing the player's movement, and once that was done, I moved on to make 3 unique spells. The first was the usual magic orb that would explode on impact, pushing anything away. The spell could be used to gain speed quickly and jump higher. My second spell was made for a bug. What I mean was, while I was experimenting with the first spell, I got the direction wrong, and instead of pushing things away, it pulled things towards it. I really liked this, so I kept it as the second weapon. I also made these 2 projectiles arc, which made the gameplay even more interesting. The third and last spell was a shield that the player could use to block attacks. So cool. Now, this spell took me the longest because I didn't know how to make it allow the player to have better movement with it. An idea I had was letting the player float with it, but that made it feel very weird to control. Finally, I made the player get pushed back if they touched something dangerous, and realized if I made the shield bigger with more pushback, the player would be able to gain better movement as a result of this. Being a square that could shoot magic orbs was cool, but being a wizard would be cooler. So I drew this guy. The wizard looked alright, but I wanted something grander. It was here that I resorted to an old foe of mine, the AIs. So I got up DALL-E and asked it to make me a wizard. The generated wizard looked super good and gave me the idea to use DALL-E to make all of the images for this game. I then got images for the UI like health and the spell indicator. It was time to create some really cool enemies because platformers need super cool enemies. So I started off by making a basic but cool enemy that would move towards the player. The special thing was that I added the enemy to have the ability to jump if something was in its path. To be fair, if there was like a tower in front of it, it would become Spider-Man and jump the tower, but other than that, it was a really cool and bugless enemy. The next enemy I made was the Archer. Now I wanted to have the Archer's arrows also move in an arc motion because that would be really cool. I implemented this and look at this Archer. Super cool and scary, especially when you have like 70 of them. The rest of the enemies I implemented were based off the first 2. This wagon enemy was just a stronger version of the foot soldier, and I also made a super powerful Archer. Of course, all the sprites were made by DALL-E. I finally got to the section of the game that I was dying to make, the levels. So, I started making a lot of levels, and I focused on the beginning section of the game. My goal was to teach the player how to play the game without showing them any of the controls. So how did I go about doing this? Well, to start off in the first level, here is the player and here is the goal. So hopefully the player will intuitionally use their intuition and move to the right side of the screen using A and D. The next level teaches the player how to jump with space, as the player needs to get higher in the level. Then it came to teaching the player to shoot. This was the hardest part of the game design because I had to hint to the player that they have to click to shoot. To help, I made these targets that connect to the portal and block the player from entering it. I also clearly displayed that they are links to it by these red lines. The player will hopefully try to click the target where they will realize that they can create a wand and shoot a projectile. The last thing I needed to teach was the idea that the player could be pushed by the spells. I placed one of these targets in a little inconspicuous box so that the player would go in, and before they shoot the target they move towards to collect this collectible, and they shoot the target and oh wait, they're pushed back. Hopefully this realization makes them play with this mechanic when they return back to the portal. The last design choice for this beginning section of this game was to have ways for returning players to quickly go through these easier levels. My favorite example of this is in one of the levels the player will see the portal up high and move to the right of the screen where they can jump up to get to it. The thing is that this level can be completely skipped by just using the spell to jump higher. I didn't finish all the levels, but I got the introduction done. So that was my progress on this game so far, but tell me in the comment sections below what you would add to this game. Thanks for watching and be sure to check out my other game devs if you found this one interesting. Anyway, see ya!